Charles, we've got virtually every option for the show for people. We had you in Asia, then we had us walking around. Now we're in the apartment and we've got an amazing surprise. Well, it's not a surprise, actually. I said it in the description. We've got Bob Bishop joining us. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jason. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you on, Bob, and we've got so much to talk about with you. You've been very busy both on the border, the southern border that's completely under control, as I'm sure you can confirm for us. And you've also been following the scam Bankman-Fried and the developments in that. So that could take a fair amount of time, but we sort of targeted about a half an hour, if you have that time, to focus in any order with you on those and whatever other topics you might want to discuss. But great to have you on.
Thank you.
You know, Bob, I was very concerned. I saw you with our friend George over there by the Migrant Center, and it's been a while since I saw you in San Antonio. It seems like it's getting pretty dangerous over there.
Yeah, it's getting pretty dicey. You know, we got to the point where a lot of these people don't have a destination or a sponsor. And so what happens is they get released and they're on the streets of San Antonio. But you can never get anybody to acknowledge, you know, from the city government or the police department that we have an issue with many of them on the street. Unlike El Paso, we don't have as bad an issue as El Paso has. But I think in the coming weeks, I think it's going to build up.
Yeah.
Well, you know, can you explain? I mean, maybe you can explain this better than either I can or Jason can, but can you explain, please, how that, I don't want to even describe the person, the White House press secretary could have the nerve to say that President Biden has more important things to do, cannot answer whether he's actually been to the border, won't tell us if he's going to go there next month when he's going to be in Mexico, won't put Kamala Harris out there. She's the point person to say this is under control, and then has the nerve to say that anybody who says that there's an open border is in league with these smugglers. Can you explain that?
That makes no sense to me or anybody. You know, who are you going to believe, their lies or your lying eyes?
Right.
You know, it gets down to that. But, you know, one of the things that we have going on with the border is what I refer to as weapons of mass distractions. The J6 kangaroo trial, we've got the issue with Ukraine, with the voting and all that. Those are important topics, but I think the most important topic is an open border. We've got over 5 million people that have come across the border, and probably in the next couple of years, if we don't resolve it, we're looking at probably another 10 million people.
Wow.
Mostly young males, no less.
Right, and they flood up here into New York. And I can say I've only got back to New York late on Saturday night, but my experience is not good. I was accosted by 3 different people this morning in the first 90 seconds of being outside my apartment building.
You got 90 seconds of peace? That's pretty good.
30 seconds of peace. Yeah. And, you know, just the mood is very tense here, as even our idiot mayor, and he's really, I mean, he's mounting a presidential exploratory tour.
Is he?
Is he? Yeah.
Oh.
But he's basically dumber than that guy I referred to, Methuselah, who lives in a cardboard box in Washington Square Park with no clothes. And, you know, even he is nervous about the crime situation here.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's one thing about all these mayors, Charles, is the situation is they never say shut the border down. They say send us more money.
Right.
You know, that's not a solution.
Well, Bob, in preparation for this broadcast, I thought to give you some facts, and I know you're very good with numbers. What would you guess New York City's annual budget is? This is for a city of 8.5 million people.
I'd say probably around 10 to 15 billion.
Try 95 billion.
Holy cow.
95 billion. And I sent Jason a list of the gross domestic product per capita. Now, 95 divided by 8.5 is, call it 11. It's more than that, but let's say 11,000 per person. And that's just the cost of government in New York City. That's not what our output is. That's just the cost of our government, the stated cost. And it's probably bigger than that because they're hiding costs other ways. If you look at this is a list of all the countries by GDP per capita, and you have to get down to number 76. New York City, just the government of New York City is equivalent to the number sign on the left there, you'll see. 70, we're down here, 77 is Turkey, right? It used 10,000. Turkey's economy, its whole economy, and mind you, I was just in Turkey, in Istanbul, and this is a serious country despite its name. And it has a lot going on, right? A lot of output. Its total output per capita is less than New York City's government spending per capita. Then keep going down the list, Jason. Look at this. Brazil, we spend more per capita on government in New York City than Brazil produces in total output. That's a serious country, another serious country. Now let's get to a country that's not so serious. Go down the list here a little bit further, and you will see a country number 110 here that is a professional beggar. That's their mission. We got Zelensky here in Washington, D.C.
Unbelievable.
Saying that 44 more billion is not enough. But their total output, the whole country, is less than 5,000 a person. We're spending 11 per person on government in one freaking city, and our idiot mayor says that's not enough.
Well, the thing I would say about Ukraine, at least they create something tangible like steel, wheat.
Beautiful women.
Other types of things versus New York City. What does New York City produce?
We do insider trading.
It's a lot of weed stores.
Charity fraud.
Yeah.
Blackmail, corruption.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, fecal matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there's a high amount of production of that for
Garbage.
sure.
Yeah. Garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zelensky in Washington, D.C., it's like me on a date with a girl. It's just like, can you buy me an iPhone? What the hell is this?
With a nuclear weapon attached.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really disgraceful what's going on there in Washington, D.C. And, just back to what you were asking Bob about Karine Jean-Pierre telling people that if you think the border is open, you're with the smugglers. Bob, it's insanity. I mean, this is this process that I've referred to as stipulating reality, where it doesn't matter what's happening, that can be seen and observed, the empirical facts. It's that they want to tell you something either on television or on Twitter, and that's the way it is, according to them.
Right.
So what have you brought for us today, Bob? I know you've got a lot of material
I think what we want to do is we want to talk about the issue of the digital pet rocks, which is FTX, and cyber currencies.
So you're a huge, are you big, long Bitcoin and those kind of things? That's like a huge portion of your portfolio?
I'm strictly commodities, the real world, the things that I need.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, this is the video, Deranged Migrant Supporter Confrontation. So people who are not yet subscribed to Bob's YouTube channel, you can get on there. Just search for Bob Bishop on YouTube, and he's got Bob Bishop Investigates, lots of great videos. He's been going down to the border and now doing a lot of coverage of Sam Bankman-Fried, who I believe has been extradited. Is he back in the U.S. yet, or he's waiting?
I think they got to have a hearing first and then officially release him.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's interesting to me, Bob, because FTX reminds me a lot of this thing called Steemit, which is another one of these cryptocurrencies where they just created a coin and then through a marketing campaign got people interested. They tied it to a social media site, and so they try to get people interested. But really what it is just manufacturing, money out of nothing, tricking people into investing in these coins and then taking the actual money, and then the thing is worthless. It's the same thing Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what they do is they produce an abundance of coins. A lot of them, they hold them in their wallet, and then what they do is they release a small amount of float. Then they go in there and buy up some of that float, and then at some point when the prices get real high, Jason, they pull the rug and they dump them. One of the things we need to go look at, let's go look at the price of FTX, if we could.
How would we do that?
Just type in FTX, FTT coin price.
FTT coin price?
Yeah, FTT.
Huh. I didn't even realize they were still trading this.
Now go down to that chart and blow it up and look at the pricing, what they did with it.
Ooh, it's kind of
Yeah,
dropped.
but make it maximum.
Yeah.
All. Yeah, if you hit all,
Ooh.
look at
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
When it hit $70 a coin, that's when they said Bankman was worth 32 million.
Billion.
So in theory, the amount of float that they had at $70 a coin was worth 32 million. They said, well, that's what Sam Bankman's worth. Not really.
But forgive my ignorance, but there's
Billion.
going to be people
Billion,
watching like me who hear float and they don't know what you're talking about.
Well, float is the number of coins that are available to the public, but they also have authorized coins that they've never released in their own private wallets.
Yeah. So it's like this, Jason, in a company analogy. If you've got a company that has, 100 million shares outstanding, but one investor owns 99 million out of the 100 million, then the shares and he's not going to trade his stock, then it's a very thinly traded stock, and the ability of the 99 million share owner gorilla
To control the price.
to make this price go up and down at will is something that should be regulated by somebody, but isn't in this case.
Wow. Interesting.
Is that right, Bob?
That's correct. Good analogy.
All right. So where do we want to go with this? Because you've sent this.
Well, why don't we go to my article on Gateway Pundit?
Sure.
And Bob, just as we're pulling it up to remind the readers, Bob has been a prolific author, both at Gateway Pundit and some other places. American Thinker, I think you've done a few
Yes.
pieces on your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and I used to write a little bit with Jerry Corsi until he shut down his website.
Right.
Is that this one, Bob?
Nope, that's not it.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I sent it to you in an email if you go to your email.
I think I did have the stuff that you emailed me, but it wasn't an article. I had this big chart that you had. No?
Well, that's one I did as a follow-up.
What was the headline on the?
I don't recall, Jason.
Okay, I'll get it. You guys keep chatting.
Right. So, overall, as we start to get into the detail, Bob, what's your impression? I mean, Elon Musk's bullshit-ometer or whatever went off when he met Scam Bankman-Fried. I had never even thought about the guy until the fraud was in the picture. But, doesn't this guy set off all kinds of alarm bells for you?
Yeah, he tried to buy part of Twitter. That's why I approached Elon Musk. He also was big into the Wall Street bets. He used a lot of the money to buy AMC.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So he was tied in investing the funds in that Wall Street bet, trying to play the probably the situation with the call options and trying to manipulate the price. Of course, with the decline of the stock market, the Wall Street bets declining, higher interest rates, he basically couldn't keep the Ponzi scheme and investments going anymore.
Right.
He couldn't bring in enough money to cover his losses.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy had been raised in Catch Me If You Can's household, Frank Abagnale or whatever, and or that who's the guy who did the other big fraudster, or Madoff's household, you might expect this, but it certainly is at first blush pretty surprising to see the son of two Stanford law professors involved, in theory, to this extent in this unbelievable mess.
You got to give me a hint, Bob, as to what this article was about. It's very difficult for me to
Well,
find.
it had to deal with the situation where I was talking about a national CPA firm being the new Arthur Andersen.
Arthur Andersen and Bob Bishop will get you what you want. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Is this it?
Yep, that's it.
Great.
So we have a situation where these CPA firms, we had two of them that were very aggressive in doing audits for various crypto firms. that were out there. And this CPA firm here, Armanino, did an audit of FTX US, which is the domestic arm of FTX. They gave them a clean opinion, but if we stop right there, Jason, and highlight that, if they gave an audit opinion in 2021, and now the bankruptcy court said that in December of 2021, according to the tax return, they had losses of $3.7 billion, how could any firm give an audit opinion? You would give a disclaimer and walk away from FTX, and they did not. So, the public didn't necessarily rely on the financial statements like Enron, but they had a number of other venture capitalists, they had hedge funds, and I'm willing to bet they had pension funds involved investing in FTX. I'll lay money.
I think that's been stated that there were pension funds involved.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that was real interesting, you just showed a minute ago, was that one PDF that you thought was in that second email. We need to open that up and look at this. So what they did with the bankruptcy court, the top 50 creditors were all redacted. This is not typical what you would see in a bankruptcy, but as you scan through it, Jason, and look at that, 20 million, 15 million. These are very large sums of money.
Just 100 million.
Yeah, they got some at 200 million. Some of these are like Sequoia Capital, the venture capital, but some of these have got to be pension funds. In addition to
how
lenders.
could they do this, Bob? People who are dealing with hundreds of millions, how could so many people get tricked? It just
Balls.com.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Well, we need to back up, and Charles can help me with this. But when you got zero interest rates and people are looking for places to invest their money and get a return, you got malinvestments, and this is a symptom of malinvestments that are occurring in our financial markets today.
Well, and it's particularly egregious, and I say this as somebody who created a few investment funds and invested in them, and I'm familiar with people who run them even today. The process by which real investment funds scrutinize investments used to be rigorous. I mean, it used to be very rigorous. And it was rigorous for a number of reasons. The first reason is that the partners have their reputations at stake. But the real reason is that the partners had taken money, as you say, from pension funds that have virtually unlimited resources to go and sue bad actors who lose their money. So what's really amazing to me is when this first came out, media played various accounts of, I think it's Sequoia and some other ones, who had raved about this scam Bankman-Fried. There's one partner who, when he was vetting the investment, said that the interview with scam Bankman-Fried was the best interview he'd ever seen of anybody. I mean, if that's true, that's like saying, go work for Joe Biden, and the smartest man that Joe Biden knows.
I mean, that's the thing. You see this kid talk for 5 seconds, and he's the opposite. And we've discussed this many times. There are people who, is he a 16-year-old kid play the piano, and you're like, wow, he's a prodigy. There are exceptional people. This guy is clearly not one of them.
He's no brain man. Or as Rain Man, no brain man.
So I don't know if I agree that this is just a normal, interest rates are doing X, Y, and Z, so people are investing in bad stuff. Something else is going on here.
Well, it is definitely, I sent you that article by Jim Grant's son, Philip Grant, which compares this current bubble to the internet bubble and talks about SPACs. And it's definitely the case, Jason, when nominal interest rates are low, and also when inflation is above those rates, fund managers, are desperate to make money, and you can make a bad investment look good. Just like the powers that be may have made Obama look good by keeping interest rates on the floor when he was president. It wasn't that costly, everybody thought, to run the deficit. Same idea.
That was not the right article, I think.
Yeah. So what happens, Jason, in these environments, and you'll see it yourself if you think back on the recent history, when you have 10-year Treasury rates, which is a benchmark rate most people use to decide, am I going to make a multiple of that 10-year rate? They used to be 9%, 10%. So for taking the risk that the U.S. government would go out of existence, which is a pretty low risk, or was until this came along, you get 9%. So to get 3 times that, let's say, in venture capital, which is what I would look for, minimum, didn't seem crazy. Well, now where are you going to get a 27% return, 3 times 9, if the treasury rate is down at 1? You can't do it. And so then you hear about this, these young geniuses. Jeff Bezos has this idea, Amazon, and it goes to the moon. And it comes back actually from the moon, empty. But you have a bunch of these guys who made a lot of money, and here Scam Bankman-Fried comes in with this pedigree of his parents. He's the child of 2 law professors, and he's got this idea, and he went to MIT, and and he talks like Rain
How did he
Man or
get
whatever.
into MIT? What is this guy's expertise? He just doesn't look like he's capable of spitting out a sentence.
I mean, there are people like that, who are very, very smart, who are just not good with that. But anyway, this guy, like Elizabeth Holmes. I mean, Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos is the same story.
But she was at least fast talking and pretty, and you could see maybe a little bit how she could kind of fool people.
Yeah, except I don't invest in gadgets. I think the whole
Look, he looks happy.
The new this, but in her case, the fucking thing didn't work.
Yeah,
and yet a whole bunch of people put a lot of money, including some very reputable funds. But Bob, I think you are going to go. You mentioned to me offline that you have some new insight to this fraud. That it's not simply about poor controls, but there might be some conflicts of interest that people don't understand yet.
Yeah. What happens is a lot of the money and the assets when people opened up accounts went to Alameda, which Bankman owned 90% of it. So think about it. You open up an account on FTX app. You have a detail of what your assets are, yet your real assets are sitting over there in the Alameda, which Bankman controls. So if you looked at your statement online, it was really a pseudo account. So think about if you wanted to close your account, you'd have all these intercompany transactions between that and the entity that Bankman had with all the assets that he leveraged out on speculation. They were actually pseudo accounts for these individuals when they looked at the accounts. So if you withdrew money, they would have to transfer that transaction over to Alameda to put it into your bank account. If you sold the coins, they would have to sell the coins in Alameda and move it over to your account, the documentation of the transactions. I don't know how you would ever unwind this. I think it's almost to the point of being a Gordian knot. And I think that the only people that are going to make money out of this are the attorneys, and the administrators, and the bankruptcy court. Now, one of the things we need to remember is on the Madoff bankruptcy, here we are, 14 years later, the other day, they just distributed $44 million. So this bankruptcy could go on for 2 decades at least.
So sorry, Bob, you said million. Did you mean billion in Madoff?
Billions, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Decades.
For Bob, million, billion.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the difference? Yeah.
That's the way Bankman-Fried does it. He's just like, just put it all in there. We got all the billions back there with all the millions. So, I mean, it sort of feels like everything is coming apart at the seams, We've got this border problem that's clearly just getting worse. And one of the most interesting things, Bob, about the approach that you have taken with George, and really this is the thing that's good about independent news versus corporate broadcast news. You're not worried about timing these videos to fit in commercials or insulting a sponsor or anything like that. You're just going there and, recording what's going on, going as frequently as you feel necessary. And what we're seeing is this devolution, just even in this shopping center from just a couple months ago when I was there with you, didn't feel entirely unsafe. There were people who were eyeballing us, particularly when we went across the street. There were some African guys who were looking at us like they wanted to kill me for having a video camera. But I mean, in this video with George, you guys are getting just straight accosted by this guy in a way that looks like he's maybe going to try to beat you up.
Well, he actually threatened me with violence. So
that's what I mean.
He's going to beat me up.
Can you shoot someone for that in Texas?
Huh?
If someone threatens you with violence, aren't you allowed to shoot them in Texas?
Well, I think that you'd wind up bankrupt if you did that. Now,
Really?
if they had a gun or a knife and they were approaching you, yeah, you could probably shoot them, but just a threat itself wouldn't be a reason to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and I was saying to Jason, and I think maybe to you independently, Bob, that I just went through customs at JFK Airport here in New York City on Saturday night, and it was bedlam. You know, forget about the foreign visitor side. Maybe that should be bedlam, but the American citizens returning home, you should just go right through. There should not. I mean, you've been on. In my case, I was on a freaking plane for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that DHS couldn't check while I was airborne. You know, is there any irregularity in this guy and clear you while you're flying? And then just establish that I'm there, and then boom, you go right through. I mean, you don't need to keep people waiting for 2 hours to go through. And then the guy asked me when I go through the line, and I've been away for 33 days. I've been to Turkey twice, Thailand twice, Malaysia once, all over the place. And the only question he asked me is, "Are you flying here from Turkey today, sir?" Yeah. Want to ask any follow-ups? No, I'm not trying to root out terrorists. You know, it was just a perfunctory exchange, but I was kept in line in misery, wondering how long I'd be waiting. And meanwhile, we have an open border, and we have an omnibus bill that they're not trying to pass where they claim they need $1.7 trillion more dollars. They can't even run JFK right.
Yeah.
And the southern border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're asking, along with George Rodriguez, where is Sheriff? I forget the sheriff's name, but has he said anything, Bob? Where is he? Why aren't they doing anything? Well,
Sheriff Salazar was the guy that made the issue of Martha's Vineyards, that he was going to root out the individuals that helped organize the plane flights out of San Antonio to Martha Vineyards.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, it was. But you know what's funny is it was strictly a political statement. He's a big Democrat. He's a Democrat first and a sheriff second. So he has aspirations of additional political offices much higher than the sheriff. He's actually been with Biden, by the way. When Biden was
in a biblical sense,
running for president, he was with him on his tour bus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this guy has some marching orders, possibly.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, our city council and the police chief and the sheriff and the judges, they're all just like major Democratic cities.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Sheriff Salazar's philanthropic work?
What is that?
You know, charity work.
But what is he doing?
Serving various nonprofit and community organizations and helping himself to as much money as he possibly could find, probably.
Yeah.
Javier Salazar. Well, so he's doing nothing, basically.
Yeah, basically nothing. You know, we've never seen him down at the migrant center. We've never seen our police chief down there. We've only seen one councilman down there. They act like it doesn't even exist. It's not even in the news media here.
How's his criminal investigation into Martha's Vineyard going?
It's gone nowhere.
Well, he's had several months. He started in September. He's a real industrious guy.
He's working on it with Kamala.
Yeah, don't rush him.
You know what's funny is we had a mass murder where this mother and her two daughters are murdered, and he was handling the investigation. Here we are 3 years later with no suspects.
Wow.
He doesn't do the job.
Yeah, and if you think about, I mean, the way in which social media and the corporate-owned media pitch the divide between Republicans and Democrats/progressives. Republicans are the country club members who don't give a shit about poor people, and they're ultra-white nationalists and yada, yada, yada. And it's the Democrats, progressives who care about the poor, who care about the immigrants, who care about social safety nets. Having an open border puts the cartels, gives them another revenue stream, the Mexican and other cartels. And what we don't hear about are the people who die along the way, who are sexually enslaved along the way, whose bodies are used to get fentanyl and other things inside this country. And it's, you know, I've used this analogy before, but not with you, Bob. It's as if you hire a contractor and you go away and it's 6 months into the project and you come back and your house is on fire and the guy's got a change order for 5 times the value of your house. that you say, how come you haven't paid the change order? I mean, that's what this team is doing. An open southern border. These people all need to be in prison, the politicians who are doing this. And Joe Biden first.
It's going to be difficult to do. So, Bob, there's quite a lot of information in this PDF. Do we want to go through this a bit more?
And now I want to go back to the article I wrote on Gateway Pundit. I want to show the audience something very interesting in that article.
Here it is.
If we scroll down, and I'll tell you, keep going. Okay, right there, stop. So what this CPA firm does, and there's Mazur does it as well as a couple of others. What they do is they do a proof of reserves. It's agreed on procedures where they go in and they run this API, this what they call application program interface, where they go in and read the various databases of these coin exchanges, the lenders, and et cetera, and they calculate what is the value of the assets versus the liabilities. So what it is basically they're trying to sell that their net assets are greater and that the exchange is liquid and solvent. But we're finding out that's anything but the truth. So basically what you're looking at here is it's commercialized bias that they're selling to the public, and the CPA firms are benefiting for these agreed on procedures of proof of reserve. So if we scroll down a little bit lower, Jason, I'll show you a click that we can do, a hyperlink. See that up, see where it says here? Click on here. So this is an example where Armanio is doing a calculation of what the assets are and the liabilities. So they say that there's no risk in owning Nexo's cryptocurrencies. I beg to differ. From everything I've read on the internet, and you look at the price of the coin, it's in a free fall. So I think that the CPA firms, particularly this one, is going to get in deep trouble, because this is not what CPA firms are supposed to do. It gives the impression that there's been an audit when in fact there's been no audit. It's just basically a limited procedure that the various coin exchanges give them and tell them, here, this is what we need to have you present and calculate for us to give to the public. Now, if we scroll down a little further, Jason, and see generate independent accountants report, why don't we click on that and open it? And see, they use this to the public. This is very unusual that an agreed upon procedure would be given to the public. Generally, it's kept private because it's for the benefit of the organization that they're doing the procedures on.
So the agreed upon procedure, that pertains to the accounting procedure for auditing it?
Well, it's not really an audit in my opinion. But if you go down, you can open up the report as well.
But that's terminology normally associated with the agreed upon
procedure.
With a full
audit. They audited nothing. All they did was pull data off various databases on the cloud and did the calculations. Who's to say that they picked up something wrong?
Well, so just to make sure we understand what you're saying. So the API, these have been coming up a lot. This is an application programming interface. So if you have a piece of software and I say, hey, Bob's software is awesome, but if I could make it talk to videos from Crowdsource the Truth, I could do X with it. Maybe Bob produces an API, which is a little sort of an interface for me to get my software to connect to his software and share information. And if I understand what you're saying correctly, Bob, they're doing all of this sort of as a facade to make people think, oh, this must be official. I'm using software and APIs that are downloading things in real time. But it's just sending bunk information to it to generate a real-time report that's false.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Not that sophisticated.
I think these CPA firms are in deep trouble. I think they're going to be sued big time. In Enron, look what happened to Arthur Andersen. We've had other bankruptcy failures where the CPA firms got disciplined and fined for their actions.
Right. And it seems to me that out of all this mayhem, we could go back before Madoff if you want to, but we could start with Madoff to make it simple. From Madoff forward, it should be abundantly clear to any thinking investor that criminals will try to game the system, that you cannot just let it be the Wild West and let all the buyers, put on notice that this could be imaginary what you're buying. It's up to you to figure out whether it's real. You have to have a system of regulation. And I say this as a conservative, an independent conservative. I've watched human nature long enough. I've watched these scumbags operate long enough. And you've got to have a deterrent, many deterrents. And one of them would be to say that regulation costs something. And if you want to be in the public markets, if you want to be selling FTX coins or Bitcoins or shares or whatever, you're going to have to engage a real accountant, and it can't be a fake audit like the Clinton Foundation gets in charity land or GE got. It's got to be you, the accounting firm, understand that you're being paid this money to check and make sure that you have not, that there's a limited possibility of fraud. And if you spot fraud, the client needs to understand you're going to take that to the authorities. So it's not an academic exercise here. You're going to be shown the full books, you dive into it, you produce a real report, and if this kind of shit happens, it's not simply that the firm goes out of business. The partners of the firm can never work as accountants again, can never work as a position of trust again, and they go to jail. I mean, it has to be real penalties, in my view.
But Charles, I'd go as far as a lot of these state accountancy boards, they only have revenue of $1 to $3 million a year. Generally, they're state employees. If you look at it, what do you do when you get a Clinton Foundation? So you go to a state that has limited resources to pursue a national firm. If you looked at Deloitte making almost 16 to 17 billion a year in revenue, how does some little state accountancy board deal with that? We really need to think about redoing how we prosecute some of these cases. I think they got to be at a national level with people that are professionally highly paid to prosecute these cases, because these state boards are just not capable of disciplining the big firms.
And it should be, that when this kind of stuff happens, there's maybe there's an entertainment industry angle to it as well. You could have your weekly Fraud of the Week show or whatever.
I think you're on it. But there's another point, guys, because when we have these unprosecuted frauds like the Clinton Foundation, isn't it? I mean, it goes without saying. It's just like people seeing other people riding bicycles on the sidewalk, or the migrant center seeing there's no cops around. When the Clintons get away with this for 20, 30 years, everybody's thinking, well,
That's how we roll.
Why are we playing by the rules? And if anything happens, we'll just point to this thing. And if you're not prosecuting that, how can you prosecute this? We're in a death spiral.
Well, you also make political contributions.
We haven't talked.
That's your coverage.
Yeah. And going back, I know with my own children, because they grew up as the children of two former investment bankers who had significant experience on Wall Street in contested situations involving lawsuits, they were told at a very young age, there's certain things you don't mess around with. One of them is the IRS, another is the SEC, another is the Department of Justice, and this is they're negotiating with me over whether their allowance is going to be $3 or $3.50 at age 4.
They got a weak position.
When they're young, whatever. But so you raise your children in a certain way that this scammer could perpetrate the scam with his parents involved as tenured law faculty at a real university, what I thought used to be a real university. I mean, this is much bigger than Scam Bankman-Fried. This is about his parents. This is about his parents' contacts. This is about Gary Gensler.
Oh, yeah.
This is about the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. And afterwards, this is likely about Obama. It could be about Biden. It's about Tony Blair, obviously, and a lot of other people.
Well, even on my YouTube channel, I've got a brief 1-minute video there where Sam Bankman's dad, Joseph, admitted he was the legal counsel for FTX.
Wow.
That is stupid.
They are stupid.
Yeah, if you go a little bit further to the right, go down. Well, that's his mother.
Autistic psychopath. Did you draw that cartoon? Oh, no, it's from the...
That's a good cartoon.
There you go, right there.
Mm.
He admits in the interview that he was the legal counsel, that he didn't have legal counsel, and he stepped in to fill that void.
Well,
this guy, I believe, is the mastermind.
I don't know. I think we've always enjoyed working
together. Is this guy
together
on
and
Trading Places
together.
or Beverly Hills Cop? Is he the
think so.
accountant?
So when I
It's
really
Elmo.
came on was
Tickle me Elmo.
after Sam asking me for a number of years if I'd be interested in doing it, which was really gratifying. I think any parent would love to hear that.
Oh yeah,
I wanted
Dad,
to
you
make
want to help me
sure
with the
that,
biggest scam in the history of scams? That guy.
Who's
first
the
of
other
all,
guy?
let me just you know who he is
Tristan.
At the start that on things like law.
he's like Tickle Me Elmo or something over there. Anyway, we don't need Tickle Me Elmo, but I don't know, something is really wrong with this, Bob. I feel like we have not yet fully gotten to the gist of what the hell is going on there. And also the girlfriend's parents were MIT economics professors. I mean, isn't this really the parents and probably somebody behind the parents manipulating these idiots to do this?
Good possibility. Think about the endowments, any type of research work that they get as well. You know, they got to play it up. So they're definitely going to play for the other side to be able to benefit themselves.
And what about this huckster? How does this guy get fooled by Scam Bankman-Fried?
Well, you know what's funny is if you play this, Jason, it's about a minute. He talks about that they had good controls, that Sam Bankman knew how to manage risk. And at the very end of the video, he talks about where Sam Bankman wiped out his accounts in front of Congress. It's a jewel of an interview.
Person for FTX.
Well,
So I have a lot of respect for the management there. I did a lot of due diligence before I accepted that position because I wanted to have a compliant home. But Sam is one of the smarter guys in this space for this
Isn't he just
reason.
destroying
Long
his
before
credibility
crypto,
by
he was
saying
a
this?
trader. He understands the power of leverage, both to the dark side and the upside of performance. So I'm going
And
to guess,
what's he
and it's a
doing with
personal
this
opinion,
weird
the
green
last guy to
screen
blow up is
background?
going to be Sam Bankman-Fried because he doesn't get himself caught in over-levered positions. Now they're very, very good in terms of managing their own business. He's got a huge team there. Ryan, the CEO. They also
Bob, was this before or after the collapse?
Before.
This is before, but keep playing the video, Jason.
Okay.
manage the Americas differently. They do the rest of the world. They're compliance. His parents are compliance lawyers at Sanford. I mean, after my accounts were stripped of all of their assets and all of the accounting and trade information, I couldn't get answers from any of the executives in the firm, so I simply called Sam Bankman-Fried and said, "Where is the money, Sam?"
Yeah, that's not
That's not
the
good.
call you want to get.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
a call you want to make.
Yeah, where's the money, Lebowski? I hope he had his head in the toilet and flushing when he asked him that.
Well,
it's
you know,
down
the
there.
interesting thing about him, Jason,
Yeah.
is if you do a little background dig into him, he has a situation where he basically almost bankrupted Mattel Toys.
Who did? The Mr. Wonderful?
Yeah, Mr.
Leary?
Wonderful. What he did is, if you do, there's some videos out there that did a deep dive background. He had some type of learning software that he sold to Mattel, and they paid a fortune for it. Then they fired him a year later because that division lost like $100 million. They had to write off their investments. The CEO resigned, and Mattel's stock went from like $30 a share down to $5.
Wow.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
learning company. Yeah, I remember
Because
that.
Mattel was trying to get into computers. When computers started, it wasn't really clear what they were going to do. I mean, a lot of people thought they were toys for playing games. Atari was doing games and computers, and then Coleco.
In 1999, that's the last bubble. The company was acquired by Mattel in what Business Week called one of the worst deals of all time. And how does this guy get what is that show he's on?
Shark Tank.
How does he get on Shark Tank having produced one of the worst deals of all time? I mean, that's
He talks about it as if it's a great deal because I remember I saw one episode of Shark Tank where he was talking about this software. I guess maybe it was when Steve Jobs died or something, but he was talking about how he tried to sell it to Steve Jobs and Jobs wouldn't have it.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mattel Interactive. So they made a computer for like a very bad computer for a little while, and then this must have been when they stopped. Mattel Aquarius. This was the crazy computer, I guess. I was more of a Coleco guy, but never had the computer. Home computer designed by Ratofin and released by Mattel in 1983.
Look at the rainbow there.
Oh yeah, it identifies as a computer. Yeah. Wow.
Definitely binary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, were you saying though, Bob, that there's another element of the software in? Didn't you tell me on the phone there's something to do with?
That's the API, no?
Well, he supposedly had a trap door and he was moving money around. He moved $300 million, not billions, Charles, to Brazil,
Ooh.
where he was going to flee. Also, there was about $477 million that after the bankruptcy filing was done, it was either hacked or the Bahamian government got that wallet of the coins given to them. So there's $750 million right there gone.
Brian is joining us on YouTube saying that O'Leary got a Stretch Armstrong instead of a severance package. That's possible. I have a
What's
feeling.
a Stretch Armstrong?
I knew you would say that, Charles. Stretch Armstrong is a great toy if you were a kid in the 70s because it was this giant, it was like a rubber kind of a thing filled with this weird gel, and it would inevitably break and the gel would get everywhere. You could stretch him out and he would stretch to unbelievable lengths. And it was great in 1980, but by 1983, it was oozing gel all over the place. That's Stretch Armstrong.
You know, one of the things that we're going to find out is through the bankruptcy court. We're not going to find a lot from the DOJ or some of these other governmental agencies. And one of the things that's going to be real interesting is the clawbacks.
Yeah.
So the bankruptcy court has 90 days to do clawbacks, which means they'll be able to get the political donations clawed back, which incidentally in the Wall Street Journal today, the CEO announced that they're going to go after the political donations. That is good news. Now, the other thing that's real interesting is if FTX made a payment on any debt in the past year, they get to claw back that debt. So you had these entities that were lending FTX millions and millions of dollars. And if they made a payment, they get to claw back those payments, which means you're going to create a domino effect in the cyber world.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these entities, they lend money back and forth to each other. They're market makers of their tokens. And I think that this is going to trigger an avalanche of bankruptcies.
Well, and they, in fact, a company just went bankrupt today. Another one. It's on Zero Hedge.
You mean coin exchanges going bankrupt or what?
No, actually, according to Wall Street, it was the Core Scientific.
Yes.
They're a miner of cryptocurrencies. But see, the problem is a lot of those miners are going bankrupt now because they're not making enough money on realigning the books of the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and their costs are going up. So two other ones that are real big is Riot Chain and then Marathon Digital Holdings. Those two are close to bankruptcy as well. Yeah. So that's three big ones. So that tells me Bitcoin has got a long ways to go. If these miners are falling out and not realigning the books, what's that put Bitcoin at risk at?
I had seen a list somewhere of the donations made by SBF. So what happens? The list that I saw indicated that Joe Biden was the single largest recipient of money from SBF. What happens with all this clawback stuff?
Well, they're going to have to raise money.
You have to pick up the phone and call China, saying we need more money.
I think what they do is they're not going to fight it. They're going to disgorge and give that money, because if they fight it, you open up a whole bucket of worms. Like, did Joe Biden solicit the money for the $5 million he got from FTX? Was he tied in with parents?
Do you know, by the way, I was reading, and maybe I misread, that I thought I saw that that Senator Karen Warren, you know who I'm talking about?
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Elizabeth Warren.
No, her name is Karen.
Right.
And I'm saying that because you're not supposed to use the name Karen in Stanford anymore.
Is that right?
Which creates a real problem if your name is Karen.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You're supposed to use the word shrew. But one of these Bankman-Frieds, I think it was either the mother or the father, was the principal legal advisor to Senator Karen Warren in coming up with their crazy-ass tax plan.
Whoa.
You know, so I think these were parents who thought their whole life has been a mission to save the world, and they devise the scorecard, they write the rules, they do everything, and if you disagree with them, you're an idiot or worse, a traitor, and They have the tenure. They grade the papers. They decide who gets into Stanford Law School, who gets the degree, who gets the good job. They're consulting. They're hobnobbing. They're helping out all these candidates. And life is great. I mean, they go ahead and they've got this crazy-ass son. First thing he should have gotten a long time ago was a haircut.
Yeah.
And, and the whole thing goes crazy. And the parents don't think twice about this son buying how many homes in the Bahamas, and they have homes in the Bahamas. It's not like they live. California is warm, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why do you need a home in the Bahamas?
I mean, just none of it rings true. Obviously, even if you're a moron, you're going to know what the hell is the son doing to make all this money.
Yeah, well, one of the things I would define his behavior as is he's got a responsibility deficit disorder.
Yeah.
I think that defines it better than anything. Jason, if you will, go back to my YouTube channel. I want to show you YouTube here.
Sure. They're trying to extract the money from the dude in the Big Lebowski.
Right.
Okay. See the far right video right there? Click on that.
His mom.
That's in the courtroom?
On the faculty at the law school and a member of the board of the Ethics Center. Ethics are all around us. They're embedded in every decision that we make. So when I teach tax policy to my students, a huge portion of the course is inevitably going to examine or presuppose certain ethical commitments about distributive justice, about economic growth, a variety of other things. So ambition, more theoretical ambition. I think there's a tendency to value high theory that evolves from consideration of an idealized world and idealized moral collective action. The general aspiration here is to start with the general welfare rather than individual rights. And the aspiration is to choose courses of action.
What did she just say?
She's teaching Obama how to speak. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wait, what did she say about the helping everybody instead of individual rights? That's not the right word.
So in other words, don't believe the Constitution.
Right.
Well,
she's teaching communism right there.
Well,
Exactly.
and actually, she's speaking when she said about, instead of
And
about.
also, by the way, while you're helping everybody, why do you need a $20 million house? Give that money to everybody.
Right. But didn't she remind? I was listening to that and say, is that Janet Yellen?
She's a crazy person.
Right,
and
she's
the
talking like
father is
Janet
crazy.
Yellen.
She's just there. I mean, this whole thing, Bob, I'm glad you're showing us this stuff because
why don't you scroll down a little bit and look at the description? She's got a quote that defines it exactly. Look at the quote.
What's it say there? The philosophy of personal responsibility has ruined criminal justice and economic policy. It's time to move past blame.
This woman's a law professor.
Really? Move past blame. Charles, don't worry about these billions of dollars that were stolen. That was yesterday.
Right.
It's in the past.
You've reached me at my 17th Bahamas mansion that my son gave me.
Are you mad about that? You lost all your money in FTX? Why focus on blame, Charles?
That's right.
Yeah.
Turn the other cheek.
I did a lot of mining trying to find videos. That's the only video of her on the internet that I was able to.
Whoa,
copy.
well done, Bob.
Yeah. And that went back to like 2012.
Huh.
And it was
and what's this?
Stanford
She's
on the
wearing an
website.
FTX jacket or something?
No.
Oh, this is that.
Well, look at the title. I like it. It says moral preening. That's exactly what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Well, then you heard that whole thing, with this SBF's, what is he, altruistic capital, or what was this bullshit he was talking about?
isn't that a different version of what Bill Clinton has spoken about, venture philanthropy? This is all creative language. We're going to steal your money.
Right.
But it sounds better.
This guy, he would be very comfortable, and he may end up there in 20 or 30 years when he gets out of prison. He's probably, he and Methuselah in the cardboard box in Washington Square Park, they can do the Methuselah's fund, Give us $1 million and you'll live forever, I promise you. Just don't ask me what happened to the $1 million.
You're right. The Methuselah fund. Wow. Now, Bob, we've got some more information from you, I think. Or do we want to keep going with the Gateway Pundit?
I think we've covered everything in the Gateway Pundit.
Okay, great. Well, it certainly went down and that's, not good. So the club, I just don't really understand. I feel like as you said, the only people who are going to get any money from this are lawyers.
Well, and actually, this is something I've brought up before, but I'll remind you. I was invited. Harvard Business School doesn't need any money, but they very frequently have capital fundraising drives. And I went to the opening of the recent fundraising drive where they announced in the first meeting they were looking for another $1 billion. This is back in like 2014 or something, or maybe even before then. And they announced that at the first minute of the fundraising, official fundraising, that they'd already raised $750 million. So my attitude was, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can raise $750 million in a minute, why are we here?
I'll have the fish.
So I went to the closing. This is, I think, 14, if I remember correctly. And then it took them a number of years to raise the money, and they raised more than $1 billion. And this isn't when I was starting with you, and there was a lot of press about GE. I think it was 2018, because there was press about, I'd written something in American Thinker about GE. And I go up to the dean of Harvard Business School, who was in the, he gives a speech where he says, the most valuable part of Harvard Business School is you, the alumni. We really care about what you think. We really care about your suggestions. I said, okay, all right, let's test that out. So I walk up to him, Dean Norita, whatever his name is. This Indian
Dean Urea?
Norita or Norita, I forget his name. But I said, Dean, over here.
Dean!
I'm involved, coincidentally, I said, with two massive frauds, exposing them, not doing them, but exposing them, General Electric and the Clinton Foundation. And I'm thinking back to my time at Harvard Business School, we never had a course on detecting fraud, because you should have a course on that. It's impossible to find every fraud, but there are warning signs that do. One of them is when you have a young, fast-talking slob,
right,
sleeping with 13 different people and playing video games on drugs. Chances are he's not the best person to give, several $1 billion to fuck around with in his spare time. Another is when you have a guy who was president, spent all his time chasing interns around the world, and married to a wife who's a professional criminal, but pretending she's saving the world. Probably not the best people to run a foundation. So I said to him, why don't we have a course? And I'm not looking to get paid. That's the new dean. If you go down to the right, it'll tell you.
That must be him.
Yeah, Nitin Noria, very nice man, but he was really into the TED talking style. He gets up in the audience, he's got the microphone over here, he's pacing back.
And then you want to talk to him about fraud, he's like, I gotta go.
Yeah, no, I just talk to that guy. But anyway, it would seem to me, instead of he was explaining the virtues of Harvard Business School, that under his leadership, they came up with this idea that every student would have to pay $7,500 of their tuition, would be given to them so that they could set up a company. And the reason they did this is he wanted the students to learn that most venture capital companies fail.
Oh.
And
so let's use your parents' money.
This is how you're going to get to learn that. I'm like, well, I think you could just write a paper about that. You don't have to charge somebody $7,500 to burn the money. But what am I? I'm not the dean of Harvard Business School. So I said to the dean, Dino, let's have that course, and I'm not looking to be paid. So I'd be happy to help somebody design course materials, or even to try to teach such a course.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it was like,
we're teaching people how to do fraud, Charles.
Yeah. I think, didn't the CFO of Harvard just get arrested for embezzling a bunch of money?
CFO of Harvard?
Yeah.
Let's see that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, it just came out about a day ago. I think it was Harvard.
Tyson Foods?
No.
If you make
just look for CFO fraud of college or something like that.
Is it in the last? Just do the research.
Last day or two.
If you do the tools, just search restricted last week or something.
Former Catholic, former.
But that's if you on the tool section on the right.
Right. I just think that we're not even anywhere close to it here. Financial statement, fraud awareness and reporting, news maybe. Trump org verdict. Harvard coach wanted $7.5 million for admissions. I'm not seeing anything about this.
Well, I think if you go back and follow Charles's suggestion of putting tools in there and making it 1 month, I think you'll find it.
Harvard coach? No.
Maybe it's
Yeah,
not Harvard.
Maybe another college, but it was one of the Ivy Leagues.
So Ivy.
Poison ivy. I don't know. We're not finding it here, but
Yeah,
somebody.
well, it was in the Wall Street Journal, $7.5 million.
Oh, they put in $7.5 million. Fraud. Probably be a lot of stories. All you stole, you were at Harvard, all you could steal was $7.5 million. You're a piker.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not working. We're going to have to figure this out another way.
Well,
Not
it
there.
could be because it's Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. Google doesn't want you to know that that's it.
Yeah. I think any money Harvard is getting from people is potentially involving fraud. But yeah, so SBF, he's getting extradited. What's the next thing we wanted to go to, guys?
Well, we've taken twice as much time with Bob as we said we would. I'm reluctant
Bob's
to.
interesting.
Yeah, I know he is, but I
It
don't
was
wanna
Harvard.
monopolize
They are
his
known
day.
for lying, Karen says.
What?
Karen says it was Harvard. So let's see, Harvard fraud. I mean, that should come up right away if it's just happened.
Sadly, there are a long list of Harvard graduates and Ivy League graduates who have committed fraud, including, I mean, there's some who allege that the current president-elect of Harvard is an academic fraudster.
Yeah. I mean, it's just bringing up Lieber, who we haven't heard too much about. Harvard-trained mutual fund manager charged. That's 2014. I don't know. We're getting hung up on this. But why don't we talk about the Twitter files? Because that, unless there's more to discuss with the border and FTX.
I think that's a good idea. Bob, do you
Yeah,
have any
I-
thoughts on the Twitter files?
Not really. I haven't followed it too closely. I'm thinking I'm going to drop off and let you guys handle the Twitter since
All right.
I don't have. a lot
Anything
to
else you
contribute.
want to add before you go, Bob?
Well, I'd like to have people, you'll put it in the description below, that my social media accounts. And
Absolutely.
they can go to YouTube, Twitter, or
LinkedIn?
the others.
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn would be another one. I don't do Facebook, though.
Yeah, right. People can contact Bob, go to the About section here of his YouTube channel, but really the best thing to do is subscribe to Bob's YouTube channel. Bob Bishop Investigates. They've really been showing us a lot of stuff down at the border. Bob is down there with George Rodriguez, who has a great radio show, El Conservador. You guys have been covering this more than any other news or anything, no mainstream corporate news has even been going there at all. There was a brief moment that they went there. Oh, that was with the Martha's Vineyard stuff.
Exactly. And we actually interacted with a number of Politico reporters, CNN. George tried to get the CNN reporter to talk to him or do an interview with him. She ran off across the street in her high heels trying to avoid us.
Is she still working there?
I don't know.
Probably not.
And people can follow Bob on Twitter if you haven't been kicked off like me.
You're from Australia?
What?
Says he's a digger.
What is that? Why is that Australian?
That's a slang term.
Like a
some people use
diggery-do?
for Australia.
Well, anyway, people can follow Bob at Bob Bish 402-888-47.
Do you know that the original Facts Are Stubborn Things, is that from Adam Smith or is that John Adams?
I don't know. I thought it was Adam Smith.
I think is that Adam Smith, the modern writer, or Adam Smith, the Scottish essayist?
The Scottish essayist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Facts are stubborn things. This is the quote investigator. Definitely
John
can't
Adams.
possibly be wrong.
John Adams. Well, that's a good point.
But the question is that from? But this is saying in an old Tobias Smollett.
John Adams did
He
use
used
the
it.
phrase.
But before that, Tobias Smollett.
Employed it. He gave it a job. Didn't use the phrase, but he Gave it a job in a blacksmith shop.
But this is actually the longer version of the quote is really quite good, right? In fact, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts, Hillary, and evidence, nor is it all less stable than the fact.
Right.
This is a really great quote this is John Adams defending the English prior to the Declaration of Independence in an episode. He didn't want to do it. He wrote about it later.
Why defending the English?
Because they fired on, I forget which, they fired on a black protester in Killian, Crispus Attucks, I think was
right.
Yeah,
that's what started the whole
right
Boston Tea.
But the last thing John Adams wanted to do was defend the English, yet he did that. So this would be something if I were trying to teach law school.
Talk about.
You'd start with this.
No, they start now with stipulating reality. What he's talking about is the opposite of that.
No, I think now what they start with is like, how much can you steal for me? Because we're going to put you in to give you the JD, and then you're not going to prosecute me, and then we're going to put you in a white collar law firm. Then we'll make you a judge.
I mean, we're joking about it now, but you look at the content that Bob has just presented us with and pointing out these things in the accounting audit that the average person is not going to be able to see. But these are the high-level professionals that we think are running the corporations and running the government. Every single one of them that we look at is just straight doing crime.
Well, they figured it out. They give you a credential you don't deserve, and they don't discipline you and take it away.
Yeah.
Jason, why don't you run a query in Google about public sentiment or whatever about different professions, what their perception is. We'll get a list of them. Well, just about any profession.
America's most and least trusted professionals in an infographic. Isn't the internet wonderful? You think of anything.
Most trusted profession, hooker.
Where is the infographic? So nurses are highly trusted. Medical doctors, less so. Pharmacists.
High school teachers? Jeez.
This is a crazy poll. Police officers are highly trusted. Who the hell did this poll? Accountants, clergy, journalists.
That's pretty funny at the bottom.
33% trust journalists.
Well, look at this.
Believe it. Members of Congress and car salespeople and business executives and lawyers are the lowest. Oh, man. Where's auto mechanics? This is a stupid list.
They should have not car salespeople. They have used car salespeople. That should be.
Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy list. What do you think of that, Bob?
I look over at the grain about high or very, very high. 8% believe that they trust Congress.
Yep.
But that's all people in Congress who wrote that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Really nuts. Well, Bob, thanks for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying Hanukkah and have a Merry Christmas on Sunday, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Take care, Bob. So there you go, Charles, the great Bob Bishop.
I can take these out.
Yeah. Joining us from Texas.
Yeah. I mean, he does really good work. I've actually seen some of his work, much more detailed work, and he's very thorough and very quick and highly experienced. But beyond that, he has a deep sense of right and wrong, and there is a difference between right and wrong. If you want to know what wrong is, just listen to that asshole Biden speak, if he does speak. I mean, to the nerve, if we may start, I'd like to, in a number of hours, we're going to be a lot poorer as a nation because these crackpots in Congress are going to pass this $1.7 billion omnibus spending bill where, there's the nerve of this professional freeloader, Zelensky, who's flying on our Air Force jet.
What?
Yeah, we sent an Air Force jet. Why the Air Force has a commercial jet to fuck around with is beyond me. But we're sending this idiot to come to Washington, D.C. to complain about the fact before Christmas that he's only getting another $44 billion in this omnibus spending bill. And really, here is where, I don't have a lot of time for the people who make arguments that people of color need this and people of color need that, more handouts. But when I think about what happened under Bill Clinton in Rwanda,
oh my God, look at this.
Right.
He's got a limo, But
we gave him close to $100 billion. Could you
Hey,
please
can't
get
buy
a
a better
fucking
sweater?
suit? Can you get him
Yeah.
a suit, for Christ's sake? I mean, you're meeting the President of the United States and the First Lady at the White House. Why? This is
brown
not
sweatshirt.
This is not some, this is not Detroit in a, pajama party. I mean, come on.
He's like, let me introduce you to Hunter. He likes blow too.
Where's Hunter? I thought he ran the place.
He should get out of the car like, He's like, hey Joe, got an $87 billion for me? Look, he's like twitching as he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
What is this, a Maserati thing? What is this?
That's the Ukraine logo.
Is it really?
Maserati. He should have been. Thanks for the Maserati, Joe. Where's all the Coke?
Yeah. The Air Force plane, I know you picked me up in Kyiv, but I'm going back to Monaco. You mind stopping in Monaco for a little bit? I may not need the plane all the way to Kyiv going back.
But what do people in Ukraine think that this guy is leaving the war-torn country? Like, what if it gets nuked right now and he's not there? He's like a captain leaving the ship, isn't it?
But, why the instant, the atrocities that were perpetrated in Rwanda were so much worse. The atrocities that, frankly, we are exacerbating in Yemen with the Houthis and all that kind of stuff are just so much worse than what's going on in Ukraine. And this is like the dinner guest who won't leave, the house guest who won't leave.
Ooh, look at this, Charles.
Yeah.
Okay, so great diplomacy there, Joe.
Well, unless this is what China ordered. China says, look, Joe, you're an old fart. You don't have much time left anyway.
Putin's
Son,
ready to nuke.
You got a son who's basically, you must be ashamed of him by now. You're not, then you are delirious.
Yeah.
And your mission, Joe, is to destroy the NATO alliance, destroy Europe, destroy the United States.
He's doing well.
Huge John Meacham, that idiot who's a publisher, one of these big publishers or whatever. He had the nerve today, if you punch his name in M-E-A-C-H-A-M, is it? Meacham? I forget if it's M-E-A. It's M-E-A, I think. Yeah, John Meacham. He's quoted today saying that Joe Biden has actually done, he says something like, people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but Joe Biden has actually done a very good job handling Ukraine, he's quoted as saying today.
That's stupid. He's got a new biography about Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, it's not like, nobody's ever written about that dude. Oh, I got an idea. Let's write another book about Abraham Lincoln. There are only like 10,000 of them.
Yeah, New Jersey Literacy Festival.
If you punch it in with Ukraine, it may not be in the news yet.
Race for bombs. Yeah, that's the advice.
But I thought I saw him.
I don't know.
Anyway, so
Gravest test of
maybe if
citizenship.
you don't do news, maybe it was just like in an internet. Yeah.
Zelensky has captured the free world. How history.
Anyway, I thought I read that this guy who is, got immense credibility because he's written a bunch of books and he's a president of a book publisher, and he's been described as Joe Biden's historical muse, this guy.
Oh, great.
And anyway, so we look at the situation in Ukraine and remember that the Hunter Biden took, I guess it's 3 million that we know about, to be on the board of a company in a country where he didn't speak the language, in an industry where he had no experience. He gets the job and he gets this, the pay is off the charts high. And his father is vice president of the country at the time and is point person on Ukraine. And, nobody with him, he hires whatever her name is, Karen Bankman-Fried or whatever her name is. Do we have an ethics problem here? Oh, no.
The ethics
that's
are all
blame.
around us.
It's blame.
Yeah.
I don't want the blame game, And really, this is, I've had to do this several times in my business career, where things go off the rails and I had to fire people and change things and stuff. And this is a moment where the country should be ranting and raving that we have an obviously incompetent guy. We talked about this in the walk around, who recently claimed, in one of these scripted moments, that he'd given a Purple Heart
to somebody who wasn't even
who was
alive.
dead.
He's got to calculate these lies a little bit better.
And we have the latest revelation that the job numbers are overinflated by 1 million. That's a big error.
Yeah, I think they.
And they're about to pass a $1.7 trillion spending bill, money we don't have, will never have, at a time when the country is in deep shit and we're sending money outside the country for stupid projects. It's a time when the average American needs to stand up and say, have a network moment. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take this bullshit anymore. Whether it's the retiring Republican Senator Shelby, who is, giving himself an earmark of, I don't know how many millions of dollars, are going to Alabama as he exits the Senate in this 1.7 omnibus. See, the way the omnibus bill works is you say, all right, ladies and gentlemen, the rules don't matter. What do you want? You want the Jason Goodman 3D Color Institute Museum? Where do you want it? You want it Toledo? Nah, I don't think so. I don't know.
Long Island?
Florida, maybe. It's getting cold there. All right, Florida it is, Jason. How about you?
But why? What are they justifying? They're just giving out money?
These politicians, there should be a very simple rule that no government building can be named after a living politician. If you change that rule, right, now the Samuel Byrd, Senator Byrd, Robert Byrd.
Yeah.
Down in West Virginia, like every toilet bowl is everything.
Wasn't he the KKK guy?
Yeah, the Grand
Why,
Dragon.
Why? I mean, they want to take down Confederate guys. Why are they letting KKK guys have buildings?
I'm saying that's the impulse. And Nancy Pelosi was just given the
Hammer Award.
There is actually some justice in the world that somebody put, I think, in this omnibus bill or maybe in another bill. They're going to name the federal building in San Francisco the Speaker Nancy Pelosi Building. And apparently it is butt ugly, like the Speaker. So there is some justice in the world. But, this idea that we would have a president who has, in my mind, and I'm not a medical expert, obviously, or even medically trained, who is obviously impaired. He could not pass a cognitive test, in my view. There's no way. And this guy is preening, your poster is related to the art department's great poster, and again, hats off. The guy is so busy. He doesn't have time to go to the southern border, the most important pressing priority in this country, but he can sit down with Drew Barrymore.
Right.
And, answer the non-questions, by saying that Dr. Jill, who's not a medical doctor and is basically a bonehead, that you don't want to cross Dr. Jill Biden because she has a very stiff backbone.
What?
It's like
she's fighting corn pop.
I know, and it's just, or she's saying, she addresses a Hispanic audience and says, "I love all you tacos."
That's just the dumbest. Whoa, Drew Barrymore got a little COVID weight going there.
Well, she's been around for a while now. Yes. She's third generation actor, right? I mean, it was her grandfather was a big deal, and then her parents.
John Barrymore. Boy, speaking of looking old.
Yeah, this is like, gee, Grandpa. How many great-grandchildren do you have? And, Jill supposedly is all in for Joe running in 2024 for another.
It's a terrible idea.
I mean, it's nobody else is.
Yeah, including Joe.
Yeah.
He's like, I can barely walk now.
Right.
Not running anywhere.
Yeah. I thought he was, did we see some story that he was over there in France?
What was he doing in France?
There was some guy who found an old bomb and put it up his rectum and then decided to go to the hospital and ask what was wrong with him, and they had to evacuate the hospital.
World War, it's like, how long has it been up there?
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that somebody in Hollywood would have done, right? I mean,
inserts bomb up rectum, causes evacuation. Well, I would think maybe he thought it was an enema.
At least one evacuation.
I was trying to cause an evacuation, but it seems to be impacted.
It's Christmas.
He was just, wow, holy cow.
I mean, that's a big thing.
The guy, this can't possibly be World War I artillery shells. They're illustrative. Yeah. These are not the shells inserted in the rectum.
These are not the droids you've been looking for.
Hospital in the city of Toulon in southern France was evacuated in a panic after an 88. I'm surprised he wasn't 33.
20 centimeters long is not that long.
It's an explosive surprise. I think if it's in your rectum, it is.
Yeah, that's probably
8 inches and 2 inches wide. Oh, okay, I think we know what the guy was doing with it.
At 88.
Why
was
the
Roman
explosive
Polanski there?
was Wait, why the explosive was slid up the soon-to-be nanogenarian's anal cavity
Who wrote this article?
is thought to be for sexual purposes.
Who's the author of this
This
article?
is stupid as hell.
Is this an accredited journalist? Let's just see the name.
This is, well, maybe
The
it's,
Jerusalem Post staff.
yeah, it's probably translated from Hebrew, so it's a little bit awkward.
But how did the Jerusalem Post decide to write about this on like a few
Well,
days?
it's the 8th night of Hanukkah, Charles. This French guy thought the bomb would only go 1 inch in, but 8 full inches. And that's why we celebrate the miracle of Hanukkah. The bomb up the ass. Come on. It's basic stuff.
Joyeux Noel.
So, Charles, let's talk about the Twitter files because they've been kind of coming fast and furious here. And it's interesting that, you know, there are different journalists who have been selected. It's pretty smart. A lot of people have been criticizing the way they've been releasing it. Say, put it all out at once and let people sift through it. I don't know. I hate it when people tell me what to do. Elon Musk has had a lot of success doing things his way. He owns it. Let him do whatever he wants. I like it that we have different journalists giving us different takes. So this part 8 is getting into the Pentagon actually doing psychological operations on Twitter, which, I mean, I think we know some of these people who are doing them to us, but we've got some tangible evidence coming out now. What do you think about all this?
Well, so here's a little bit of what I think. So and I've talked about this in the past, that my father, who is a physicist, nuclear physicist, has several inventions to his name, patents to his name, and has spent his entire life thinking about, you know, technology and new ways to harness technology and novel approaches. Has always said that if you just take a new technology and use it to reduce the cost of some existing product, that's not all that great. But if you can
incremental.
Yeah, if a new technology allows you to approach the solution to a problem in a radically more robust way, and opens up new capabilities to the marketplace, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so when you think about this Twitter, if it had been run properly, it should have been a way to facilitate the important national and international debates over vexing problems that remain, if in some ways have gotten more difficult, more vexing, and more consequential ever since Twitter, before Twitter, but you know, ever since we've been in this modern technological revolution. That didn't happen. What happened was the crooks who are basically milking existing and future taxpayers of multiple governments around the world looked at Twitter and said, "This is fucking awesome. We can get in the mind. We can turn fact into fiction or reverse. We can shape political debates. We can cause a candidate to be kicked out. We can cause a candidate who should be working with Methuselah on the cardboard box in Washington Square Park to be there in Washington Square Park. And we could basically, we're kingmakers and president makers and whatever. And we also, by the way, can make money in the process. And so you're sitting there, the rub used to be in government that if you went into government, you could give yourself all kinds of titles and awards and stuff like that, but you weren't going to be rich ever off government. That was the idea of service as opposed to like getting rich, milking the system. But I think the intelligence people looked at this and said, hang on here. You know, we have this environment where we decide what's a national security threat, and we don't have to explain to the unwashed, to the public, or the people who should be regulating us, what is and isn't a national security threat. So under the cover of saying that something's a national security threat, we can go to Twitter, and we can go to Google, and we can go to Verizon and AT&T and Apple and other places and say, you know, we face this dread threat that we can't explain to you. And for that reason, we need Jason Goodman's personal files and Charles Ortel's personal files and all these other files and information. And we'll make no representations to anybody what we'll do with it. And we don't just need Jason and Charles's. We need everybody's file in America. Because it could be out of that we'll find one terrorist. And, you know, anyway, so the process, and you and I have been through it, I think, in Hollywood. I've never been through Hollywood, but I've been through it, I think, perhaps a bit more in corporate-owned media, that when you're pitching a story, it's the editors who are extremely powerful. The suits are powerful, but the editors basically decide.
Well, that's in news.
In news, yeah. The editors decide you will get 150 words or 750 words or whatever it is in the looming publication, or you won't. And more to that, you come up with your idea, but you haven't made the phone calls, you haven't traveled around, you haven't spent money. The editors say, no. Don't pursue the Clinton Foundation.
Right.
Because that would expose us. Do pursue the Trump Foundation, that kind of stuff. So
Right.
in Twitter, the people who decide who get the blue check marks and who
You don't even know who they are.
Right. And the people who decide which story gets enhanced and which story gets, they're very, very powerful. And the FBI figured that out. And perhaps the CIA and other organizations figured it out. So they immediately go right in and they say, listen, Osama bin Laden lookalike, your company's fucked up.
Jack Dorsey.
Right? Your company's fucked up. And we all know what you really want to do, and it's not running Twitter. So how about you pretend that you continue to own all this stock and that you're a multi-billionaire, and just don't look too carefully at all these people who are now going to be going inside Twitter, having access to the inner workings of Twitter, and just don't even ask us or think about asking us what we're doing, because we're never going to tell you. And accidents do happen, Jack.
And Dorsey just said,
give me a nose
what?
ring. Yeah, I'll take a nose ring. Fine.
he said, what?
Yeah, like,
FB what?
Yeah.
This is Twitter, man.
yeah,
Not Facebook.
Fast times at Twitter high.
Fast times a dummy high. But
Right?
just real quick, Charles, along the lines of what you were just telling us about, a lot of people don't realize, we talk about things like the Patriot Act and we're like, ha ha, gave away all our rights. Oh, well, people say it all the time, but they're not really thinking about it. The cows have come home, or the chickens roost. They've come home to roost. And this all started with the Patriot Act. And everybody who was like, well, yeah, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not worried about the Patriot Act. What you're talking about is the creation of the National Security Letters. This is an actual thing that was codified in the Patriot Act. And what this was is the National Security Letter provision of the Patriot Act radically expanded the FBI's authority to demand personal customer records from internet service providers, financial institutions, and credit companies without prior approval. This is actually not doing an adequate job of explaining exactly what it is, because a lot of people don't seem to realize that prior to these national security letters, we were all protected in the security and privacy of our homes, papers, and effects by a little something called the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. Used to be the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things.
It goes on, actually.
It goes on. There needs to be evidence. It's got to be in front of a judge. You can't just say, we suspect this person.
But you see, Jason, this is the way these morons, Karen, Warren, and Barack Obama, is it because I'm crossing my legs?
No, I don't know. Something is interfering with my audio here today that we've never, ever had before.
Right. So the way those people would say it, Obama, the know-it-all, some would say, he'd look at this and he'd say, do you see the word computer in here? I don't. This doesn't say anything about computers.
That's like that joke where the lady, I can't tell this joke.
Don't.
The lady goes into the ice cream store and she says, I like a strawberry ice cream cone. She says, I'd like a chocolate ice cream cone. She says, sorry, ma'am, we just ran out of chocolate ice cream. Oh, okay. Then can I have a banana split with vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate? And the guy says, ma'am, I'm sorry, you might not have heard me. We've run out of chocolate. And she says, well, then I'll just have a chocolate milkshake. I says, lady, you see that sign up there? It says vanilla. You see the word van in vanilla? And she says, yes. She says, okay, you see the word straw in strawberry? And she looks at the sign and she says, yes. And he says, lady, do you see the word fuck in chocolate? And she looks up there and she says, there's no fuck in chocolate. That's what I'm trying to tell you, lady. There's no fucking chocolate. Sorry, but it's funny.
It is good.
But anyway, Fourth Amendment, there's no fucking Fourth Amendment.
Right.
Because now, if the FBI decides, because somebody says, oh, this person called Ted Malik from an iPhone, this person said X, Y, or Z on the internet. Now, if you say something that is against the law and provoking violence, that's one thing. But if you say any of the number of things that would get us kicked off of YouTube right now, that is not grounds for the FBI to come and investigate you. But since 2000 and, whenever the Patriot Act passed, 2002 or whatever, this Fourth Amendment has been decimated, and it's the Constitution.
Right. And so we've talked about this on the walk around, our most recent walk around, but in general, there's a famous, The Man Who Loved Numbers is the book. Somebody Erdos, E-R-D-O-S, is a very famous mathematician, extremely eccentric mathematician, but some say that he was much, much smarter, E-R-D-O-S, than Einstein.
Really?
Yeah. And what he would love to do is he would have his eccentric mathematicians and others gather. Yeah, is it Paul Erdos? Paul Hoffman was the author, and it's about, Paul Erdos. It's quite a great book, actually. Very interesting book if you like this kind of stuff. About reading about brilliant eccentric people. But what he would do is he would organize these races, like running races at an oval. And he'd say, he'd hit the starter button, and the people would run, thinking that the rule of the game was you're going to run, but you're only going to find out how long the race is in the middle of the race, and he's going to decide.
Boy.
Which is really kind of hard, because some people are
pacing
sprinters,
yourself, right.
And others are marathon runners or whatever. And I've always taken the view, I love playing certain games if the rules are known and enforced, but I'm not going to play a game
Change it in the middle.
We change it in the middle, or with Twitter, if you look at this, people are focusing for the moment. The Twitter files are focusing on the political aspects of it, but Twitter could be used and may still be used to shape the way people think about investments.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
That's what I was saying about the stonks. And then we just had Bob tell us that what's-his-name was buying AMC stock.
And so one of the most suspicious things that has come out of this, in an angle that perhaps we'll break here, is that there's a firm called Bridgewater, I think Associates, or Bridgewater something or other. It's a very large hedge fund. And of all, if you're going to hire, if I were going to hire, lawyers for this firm, which is likely to get in trouble. I mean, when you're a big firm and you're investing a lot of money and you have a lot of people working, chances are there will be bad apples, and no screening process is going to root out all the bad actors. And if you're about making people fortunes, the employees fortunes, and your investors a lot of money, you could write all the books you want, and as Ray Dalio has written, and he's a very famous guy, a very successful guy. You could do all that, but the last two people I would put in the legal department are Jim Comey and James Baker, both of whom worked for this Bridgewater Associates now, or whatever it's called, Bridgewater Capital. Now, one of the ways that hedge funds like this is a macro hedge fund, meaning that it invests money trying to anticipate significant changes in the global economy. So if you think if this is a kind of fund that will try to suss out in advance the price of oil is going to go up, okay, so let's buy a lot of oil futures. Or the price of gold is going to go down, let's short gold. Let's do this, let's do that. But if you happen to know, and I'm not saying that Dalio knew this, but it's more likely that there are people inside the fund who are working with the Comeys and working with associates of Comey and Jim Baker. If you happen to know that Barack Obama and these guys were not there in the beginning of the Arab Spring, but if you happen to know that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were about to destabilize the entire world, or that Joe Biden was going to get us close to nuclear war, okay, and you're operating Bridgewater, and you know that because you're getting inside information out of somebody in Hillary Clinton's office or somebody in this Tony Blinken, I'm Stinkin's office, Secretary of State, you can make a shit ton of money with 140 billion of equity. That's the total money that they have in capital. They leverage that a number of different times. Some of these funds will leverage 10 times or more. So you're talking about having $1 trillion maybe of buying power to bet that Ukraine is going to go down, or Russia's going to go down, or England's going to go down, or the United States is going to go down. So this idea that there's an FBI alumni association of crooked fools. I mean, think about James Comey's reputation. By the time he went into Bridgewater, he had led the investigation into the Clinton Foundation as U.S. attorney and missed it.
Right. So
In
if you
quotes,
need to
missed
do
it.
some theft,
Right.
here's a good guy to get on your payroll.
And James Baker was another thug. And now we see in retrospect just how hard bad a thug he was. So, when I look at this Twitter file stuff and I think about our experience meeting Shelby Halliday, and at a time in 2018 when she was at the Wall Street Journal, and I got nothing against young, successful people. I might have been a young, successful person once. But this idea of a young, successful person who is not going to understand that she's part of a team that's breaking the rules, that you're meeting with the press officer of the FBI at a Starbucks. I'm not saying she did this, but there were allegations that in this time frame, the FBI would meet journalists, not at the office, not at either office.
That's what they wanted to do with you.
Right. Well, they did do with me.
Off the books meeting.
Right. And that the FBI would be heavily involved shaping the news flow. Think about this. The FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop in 2019 at a time when Joe Biden's candidacy was a complete non-starter. Right? There was no real enthusiasm for Slow Joe in 2019. It was only, I think, when they realized that Bernie was not viable, too far to the left, and that Karen Warren was a disaster, and that Kamala was a disaster. They said, we got to have somebody that we'll put in. So they have the laptop. It takes Peter Schweitzer less than a week to validate it.
Yeah.
And the FBI has it. They have this vaunted investigative power. And what we know so far is that Twitter knowingly, and that James Baker knowingly promulgated this idea that it was a Russian hack and that you just ignore this, it's bullshit, at a time when Bill Barr was the Attorney General of the United States. Don't tell me he didn't know.
Of course he did.
Of course he knew. And if we ever get this new Congress seated and a new speaker or whatever, Bill Barr needs to, and Jeff Sessions, if he's, Beauregard Sessions, if he's still around, and others, and Christopher Wray for sure, need to face some very serious questions. I mean, this was, the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story was certainly an election-moving event.
Absolutely.
Certainly. And here we have all of these airheads, whether in Congress or John Meacham or, at the Morning Schmo television show, you name it, all these people saying, but Donald Trump is a Russian agent, and any questions about the Clinton Foundation are crazy, and conspiracy theorists and whatever. And now we see that the FBI is deeply stuck into Twitter, and we don't really know. What we know, they're showing us the official communications. I am quite certain, and you know me, I'm not a technology expert. In addition to these channels, there are other channels, just like the Lisa Page stuff. There's got to be other ways these people were communicating. They're not so stupid as to say, let's have a big conspiracy and let's, give all our evidence on Slack. There's going to be some other way they were doing this, signaling one another. It probably involves personal meetings. And, there's been no scalps have been taken. Look, this is July 26, 2017, this particular one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, they're going through everything. So this is Lee Fang. He's
a good journalist, by the way.
Yeah, and he's The Intercept, I think. He found a bunch of communications where they were talking about, I can't remember if it was him or Schellenberger. Maybe Schellenberger found the ones where they're talking about the 3.5 million. Now, Elon Musk, obviously very smart engineer, business guy. I think he maybe hasn't had the education in how to say non-actionable things because he sort of makes these conclusory statements that are admittedly not 100% correct. He said something to the effect of, the FBI paid Twitter to censor. And although that may be somewhat correct in a roundabout way, it's not actually what happened. There's a statute about companies cooperating with government investigations, and there's a schedule by which their time is calculated and they're reimbursed because they don't want a government investigation to put your company out of business. I mean, it's a legitimate reason to be given money, but the problem is, Musk is doing things like he's asking Adam Schiff, oh, did you approve this because you were the... He's totally missing the headline, because this is not something that was approved in 2016 or 2017. We've been looking at this photograph a lot, and I think this is going to prove to be an extremely important photograph. Charles, you know that I'm probably hours away from releasing an explosive document that's going to reveal a ton of evidence that I've derived from the public domain that indicates to me that Adam Sharp, Barack Obama, and former FBI General Counsel Valerie Caproni are the three individuals most responsible for the weaponization of Twitter. And I'm going to explain it in great detail in this article that I'm going to be publishing, I think later today, if not later today, tomorrow, on Medium. People can search for me on Medium. I don't even right now necessarily have the direct link, but I'll be putting it out as widely as I can. I've spent a lot of time on this document, and I've developed a lot of evidence, and I think that this is one of the largest crimes ever committed in the history of our country. It should result in these three and their co-conspirators, alleged co-conspirators. It should result. This is all my opinion, based on facts and evidence that I've observed in the public domain. I don't know if this is 100% correct, but I believe that the evidence that I've identified in the public domain is sufficient to bring charges and investigate further. Whether or not anybody will do that, I'm talking about a former president, a U.S. district judge, and a very well-connected, political
Hack.
operative, whatever it is he thinks he is. But, this is also a guy that I've accused in court documents of violating New York nonprofit law. He had a for-profit corporation running while he was the CEO of the 501c6 tax-exempt business association, the National Television Academy of Arts and Sciences. And, you're not allowed to do that. This is a guy who's utilizing his role as the CEO of the Emmys, arguably, to benefit his little side business there. You're not allowed to do that.
Side hustle.
His side hustle. He had a side hustle when he was at Twitter. Charles, would Dylan Reed have allowed you to run some separate company while you were working at Dylan Reed?
No. You had to clear being a director, an outside director. Let alone because you're paid for that actually. So no, you wouldn't. But just going back to Twitter. I have used Twitter to reach out to journalists. I wanted to try to get them to focus on the Clinton Foundation or other issues. I've used it to promote our shows and other media appearances. And I've enjoyed, I didn't use it traveling because I just, for whatever reason, I decided I was going to take a little break. And I will get back maybe next week to Twitter again. You'll see Schellenberger's on Substack, and I'm setting up my Substack for next year. But it's just very clear to me that people who have decided that they're on a mission that cannot be regulated. They're protecting America, keeping us safe from unnamed threats.
Yeah.
And don't ask me. It's like that story I told you of this banker at a big bank who, and somebody else used the tactic in government, who had two families. He had one family in Europe and one family in America, and he was constantly lying. And there's the guy who was working at the EPA who told him that he was actually on a secret mission for the IRS, and so he didn't do any work for either company. And so you have here in this Twitter, it has been used, I think, to topple. I think we can safely say, instead of dancing around the outskirts, Twitter has been used to rig primaries and elections inside this country, potentially. Potentially. That's what the evidence shows.
I agree with you, but I think YouTube's going to get upset if we say that. And I mean, that's the thing, Charles. We are not allowed to discuss facts and evidence because it risks my livelihood. So I hope that people will become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, because I'm not kidding. They could take us off for saying that.
Sorry.
Even I'm not even that. Don't be sorry. What we need to do is we need the First Amendment. We need the Fourth Amendment back. When Barack Obama said he's going to fundamentally transform America, what people didn't understand is that what he was talking about was taking it from a constitutional republic to a technocratic autocracy, fascism.
Right. Well, and let's not only make it about Obama. I think it's good you bring up Obama. It's good to remember that Joe Biden was present anyway. He wasn't president, but he was present.
Right.
For the entire Obama presidency. And I think it goes back before that, and you agree with this as well, to W. Bush, to Clinton, to H.W. Bush. I think we've had a test ever since September 11th, 2001. We've given the 17 national security agencies that we know of unbridled reign to do whatever the fuck they want to do. And look where we are today. We are certainly not safer.
No.
Right? And look at Afghanistan, it's all gone. Do you see that they've said, all right, as an opening move, because we promised to Jake Sullivan, who's a knucklehead, after we took Jake's $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money, which Jake said he wasn't going to give us, we promised that we would, tread lightly and we respect women's rights. So the first thing we did is we said, at the beginning, women can't go to elementary school. Okay, then we followed that up and said, well, they can't go to high school. And for good measure now, because we really respect you, Jake and Joe and Harris, now they can't go to university. Right? So we've done a great job. Remember, this is Democrats.
This is Afghanistan you're talking about.
Democrats are saying it's the Republicans are heartless, right?
Right.
So Donald Trump leaves a settlement in place where the leader of the Taliban then understood that if he fucked around, he was personally going to be dead, because we had done that to other people. And Joe says, not only are you not going to be dead, you're going to be a billionaire. It's like how I married a billionaire, whatever. We're going to give you billions of dollars. You can continue your campaign, exacerbate your NYU finance.
Yeah, it was our audience. The crowdsource process does it again, Charles.
And this is a guy I spoke to about the Clinton Foundation. There are two Jonathan Allens. He's a good guy. The guy at Reuters is a good guy.
Oh, okay. So this is a former New York University finance director. I mean, New York University is a pile of shit. I'm sorry to say.
Look at this. Intended to fund minority and women-owned businesses. So what is the name of this former director of finance?
I don't know, but I have to pay them to read the rest of it.
That's hilarious.
It wasn't 3.3. The thing that I also wanted to tell you, Charles, is that,
I didn't
this
finish.
guy... Oh, sorry. Yeah, finish.
No, I just want to finish because I was on a particular thought that... the Democrats are out there saying, we're the saviors of the vulnerable, when in fact what they're doing is destroying. There are very few people more vulnerable than women in Afghanistan under the Taliban right now, right? And that's on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden.
Well, Ukrainian people are just as vulnerable. They're about to get blown up at any minute.
Right, and you look at this mess, and it's just such an outrageous mess where Twitter is used to sell fiction as fact and fact as fiction, to move elections, to make people who shouldn't be rich richer, and to make people who are rich poorer, to hound perceived enemies who have figured out this mess. And because these files are coming out now, there is a risk that the deep state will use this 2-week period, which is an unusual period now of Christmas and
to
New
cover
Year's
this up,
and Hanukkah and all this stuff. Yeah, release this now, and then next year it's all news. Right, and that's a pattern we're down. But we can't take this. We cannot take this shit. I think, and another point, you and I were talking in the very beginning about Twitter when the deal was first announced, and I said, and you said as well, that Twitter seemed to be a shit business, and now we're learning. That it really, at least shit you can use as fertilizer. I mean, this is a business. It's a non-business. You don't buy a company for $44 billion and then fire more than 50% of the staff.
So what's he doing?
Well, I don't know why he's doing this. I mean, it may be completely altruistic. Maybe it's only 10% of his supposed net worth, 13 billion of his equity versus
Yeah, but
140.
all of his friends are going to be pissed if he's just driving it into the ground.
I don't think he's trying to drive it into the ground. But my point is that before he bought it, it certainly was shit. It was a non-for-profit company, grifting, breaking the law. It certainly seems to me.
Well, it wasn't a not-for-profit company. It was just unprofitable.
I'm saying it's a loss-making.
Yeah.
In theory, a non-profit-seeking company, but whatever you want to call it. It was a joke.
It was a shitbird.
But it had monopolistic power, near monopolistic power,
Yeah.
and it abused that power. And it was making, I think, undeclared campaign contributions to many political campaigns around the world. It was making some leaders look great and others look stupid. Can make Greta Thunberg look sensible or make her look stupid today. And we're just seeing the beginnings of the outrage. I mean, there should be. I'm not advocating violence here, but there should be. The pitchforks need to come out here. We have been hoodwinked.
Yeah, badly.
Badly.
Yeah, and I'm going to go into great detail on all of these topics in this article. I refer to this Atlantic piece by Philip Bump from 2013, tells us you're not really following at Barack Obama on Twitter. And this, because you were just talking about how Twitter is making, unrecorded campaign contributions. This article alone is evidence of that, because the Twitter handle has gone back and forth from the campaign to the man himself, now to the nonprofit organization. You can't just move these kind of valuable things around without having some sort of, in-kind calculation for what the value. I don't know that it's Twitter that's doing it, but there is value there that's not being accounted for.
Right, and in Washington D.C. and the news media cycle, the standard fairy tale is, the evil for-profit companies are the ones that Washington, D.C. and other state governments, international governments need to regulate. Focus on them. Ignore the nonprofits, ignore political contributions, ignore what these people are doing, trying to steal more money in yet another stupid-ass fucking whatever they call it, omnibus.
Yeah.
All on the bus.
Why do we need the
wheels on the bus are falling off, Bill? It's just, it's outrageous. So I look at this and I'm not happy at all. I mean, I'm actually livid at what I see so far in these, and I think I actually applaud the way they're doing this. I started to say with my father that Twitter is an example of doing things differently, spreading news differently. If it were done the way John Solomon does things at Just the News, which I think is exemplary, where he has a short summary in his title, and then he has a short, text. And if you want to dig deeper, you can dig deeper in the text. And if you want to see the supporting documents, and most every one of his articles, you can see all that stuff. That's great. Twitter was useful to me when I was spreading information that I saw about the Clinton Foundation. It's a useful tool for me. But if it's not going to be transparent, and if it's going to sell, bullshit, which really is a lot of, if you look at a lot of the arguments that we've heard out of the left are unsupported.
Come from Twitter. It's like a crucible of bullshit.
Right, exactly. It should be a brown bird.
It is a shitbird. That's why I call it that. Right. But the other thing I want to point out, Charles, it is a theater of, fifth generation warfare. This is mimetic warfare. This guy, Stefan Sosanto, he's been difficult to reach, but he's in Zurich at this think tank. I'm not crazy about think tanks, but he wrote this whole report about the IT army of Ukraine, its structure, its tasking, its ecosystem. I see this thing operating with impunity on Twitter. I can even name accounts that I believe are associated with it, but this is a hell of a report for people to look into. And I mean, this is the type of thing that the FBI should be stopping from happening on Twitter. But, I think a lot of people don't realize that the FBI has this thing called NABU. Do you know about that?
I don't know the acronym necessarily. What is it?
This is the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine.
Yeah, I know about that.
And just like they've got this real convenient naming convention that when they call something the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, it's in charge of corruption.
Yeah, it's
doing it.
That's because, well, let me, I'm going to just educate you on something, because you mentioned you have a small eyesight problem. So you don't see what that really says. I can read the invisible ink in this.
What's it say?
You notice, Jason, just look at this, right? There's all that line is occupied, all that line is occupied, but this line is a space. That's because the invisible ink is the word anti there. So it's the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine.
Right, they're against
it's obvious
the
to me, anyway. I can read that.
But this is the FBI. This thing is set up by the FBI in Ukraine. You know, I mean, this is crazy. And so the whole thing that's been going on basically in Ukraine is, you know, all of these State Department people who were first operating under Obama and are now back there under Biden. You know, they're all the same people who were testifying against Trump, that, you know, calling up the president of another country and saying, hey, we've got evidence that there's corruption going on. That's somehow bad.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up. And there was something you were going to remind me about, which I forgot what you're going to remind me about. Maybe
I forgot too.
Okay, well, maybe it'll click as we go. But I told you that when I was coming back when I was flying from Bangkok to Dubai on Emirates, great flight. And I'm a huge Larry David fan, and I was watching Curb Your Enthusiasm the whole season. You know, I watched I forget what year it was, but the whole season. The final episode of the show, who was the star?
I don't know.
Vindman.
What are you talking about?
Vindman was in the show. He was
the actual
dude. Larry David put him in the
Whoa,
show.
whoa. So Larry David is advertising FTX.
Right.
Putting Vindman in a show.
Right. If you Google, you'll see. And Vindman, he actually was sort of funny in the show. The idea that Larry wanted to, it was these politically active people who wanted to honor Vindman for all his service, and Larry was roped into it. And meanwhile, that guy, JB Smoove or whatever his name
he's
was,
hilarious.
He was trying to, he got a free trip to Europe, around the world or something like that, but the woman's name had to be Mary Ferguson or something like that, or some name, and one of them got sick and he had to find a replacement one, and that's another side thing. So there's this event celebrating Vindman, and then JB is trying to he can't find his passport hours before he's supposed to leave, and the close is that Vindman runs away with this woman taking, you know, the tickets, that whatever his name. But Vindman was in the, Vindman. This is it. It's hilarious. This is
not Vindman, is it?
Not yet, but this is it's episode 10, and I think also maybe it might have been 2 episodes.
Huh. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Wow. Vindman. Well, so, I mean, this is crazy that guy is made out to be a hero. He is, you know,
scum.
He's scum. So Vindman appeared in an interview with the Kiev. He's done a few. Yeah. So here he is in Ukraine in this interview with the Kiev Post, which seems like British propaganda to me. And he's there, you know, talking about how he's helping the Ukrainian army. How is he not an American military person? He showed up in a uniform just a few months ago as a lieutenant colonel. This guy is a fat dick. What is he doing on TV?
Well, again, you know, what are we doing in the Ukraine?
Exactly. It's this. Idiots like this who was in the army, the U.S. Army, and also offered the position of defense minister of Ukraine.
At the same time, yeah.
And then he's testifying against Trump. Why isn't he being court-martialed and charged with being a traitor and whatever? As far as I know, the Army is not looking for the individual opinions of every single person in it. You're supposed to do the order and shut up.
Right. Well, but more to the point, I mean, here we are. This is America, and what are we today? The first day of winter, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it's not going to be a nuclear winter, 2022, 2023.
Yeah, that's Joe's dark winter.
Right. But, you know, here we are, the first day of winter, and our financial resources are badly stretched. Right.
Yeah.
We have got way too much debt, way too many continuing commitments. New York City is a shithole. You know, it's worse than a shithole, whatever the next thing down from a shithole is, you know, a necropolis. But, you know, and here we are entertaining some some douche, frankly, who is running Ukraine
Oh, Zelensky?
into the ground. I mean, he's imprisoning his opposition, shutting down the press, shutting down the churches, shutting this and that.
He's going to get everybody there killed. They have to stop the war.
Right, and here we are focusing on that. New York City is gone, frankly. I
don't like leaving the apartment.
I would rather start a new business in Mogadishu. The Mogadishu private equity fund.
Pirate fighting
Right,
is safer.
Right. I'd rather do that than invest money in this shithole. And a whole bunch of once great American cities. We're not trying to make America great anymore. That's a distant goal. We got to make America livable again. Mala, not MAGA.
Yeah.
Right? Under this.
It's very bad. It's very bad, Charles. Well, listen, we've been going for about 2 hours. This is like old school show length,
Right.
but I think it's good. I want to get back to finishing this article because I think when people see it, I really do believe if this article can gain the traction that it deserves, this is going to bring the house down. I've never done anything this substantial before, and it is just all. This is like congressional testimony, statements these individuals have made, executive orders that Obama signed, things that were published in the New York Times, etc. And it
Sounds suspiciously like investigative journalism.
evidence. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be, I think, really devastating if it can get to the people who can do something with it. Here's one other thing I wanted to say. Is it Comer who's been saying that they're going to defund the FBI?
Yes.
Here is the problem with people like that, and even Elon Musk asking Adam Schiff if he approved of this. They fundamentally misunderstand what is going on. Defunding the FBI is well aware that Congress has the power of the purse, and I allege that that is the reason that CrowdStrike and all these other things have been created. The FBI, James Comey, they don't need money to do these operations. They can donate $1 million to the Brookings Institution, which can give a grant to the Wilson Institute, which can, they have all kinds of ways that they can fund these operations where Congress cuts. They're not going to be like, oh, damn it, we didn't think of that. They have all these cutouts. They're rich. We are so far through the looking glass. It's not about how do we stop this. We have to upend. Somebody's got to flip the table on the FBI.
Right. Yeah. Not just the FBI.
Not just the FBI.
The IRS, the DOJ, the judges.
The executive branch. The judicial branch. Right. Congress.
Other than that.
Yeah.
Well, it just on what when we were over in Norway, and now that was right before.
It's almost 2 years.
Yeah, almost 3 years.
Oh, right.
January.
Wow.
We sat down with one of the top media groups, TV media groups, and the top investigative journalist there. And he turned to us and he said, guys, if you're right, you're describing one of the biggest criminal conspiracies ever attempted.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're describing.
Yeah.
And we've let it happen. Those of us who just say, well, everybody does it. This is just politics. Well,
right.
I need to get back to my barbecue. I can't think about this. I need to have another beer or have some fentanyl or, whatever.
My kids need braces. Listen, I'm sympathetic to people who are busy. This stuff is complicated. Charles, it took me, it's years that I've been researching all this. And the ironic thing is, Obama I was looking into, but these other people, I didn't know anything about them until they started messing with me, and they've been up to a lot of sinister shit.
Right. Well, yeah, it's an essential, if you're going to simultaneously, when you think about the mainstream news business, right, you cannot be in the mainstream news business and be denied access to a pivotal politician, right? You can't run the risk that a Ted Cruz, for example, will say, I never want to speak to CBS. You can't do that to him. Right. And you certainly can't do it to Joe Biden and his people. So you show a certain amount of deference if you're the news organization. So if you're now somebody who is helping you found this cool tool over here that has a set of rules that's available for the inside group politicians,
Right.
but won't be available to Donald Trump.
Right.
And you can now show an undistinguished politician. Barack Obama, in real life, maybe he's charming. Maybe he's very intelligent and really smart guy. Maybe. Maybe
not.
Right, maybe not. But, you can't tell me that Twitter didn't help Barack Obama, A, become senator eventually, or become a presidential candidate, and B, become the darling of the media. And Barack Obama could do no freaking wrong while he was president and now afterwards. There has never been even a tenth the level of investigation into Barack Obama that already is happening on a daily basis to Donald Trump. Now they've released his tax returns and whatever. You can't tell me that Twitter didn't help Barack Obama. You just can't. You're never going to be able to prove that.
Let me give you, Charles, and the viewers a taste of where this article is going to go, the article that I'm writing. So this is David Carr. This is maybe the day after Obama won in 2008, how Obama tapped into social networks' power. Carr tells us, wait a minute now, Carr, yeah. He tells us that in February 2007, a friend.
That's a very powerful guy, Mark Andreessen.
I know, but no. A friend called Mark Andreessen, founder of Netscape and a board member of Facebook, and the friend asked if he wanted to meet with the man. See, the way this is written, you and I initially were like, oh yeah, a friend named Mark Andreessen.
No, I didn't think that.
But it's a bit confusing the way it's written, but the point is, an anonymous friend called Mark Andreessen. We don't know who that friend was. And here's the interesting thing about this: you're not really following at Barack Obama on Twitter. It's interesting because on March 5th, it was created, this Twitter account was created by a staffer. Anonymous friends and staffers doing all this stuff. It's amazing because you see, Jack Dorsey sent the very first tweet in history on March 26th.
2007?
2006. Less than 1 year before Barack Obama created his account.
And just to put this in perspective, Hillary Clinton announces her candidacy for president on January 20th, 2007. And prior to that, the book Clinton Inc., the author of that book, Daniel Halper, recounts that the Clinton campaign had been going around to the Democratic Party saying, do not challenge Hillary Clinton. She's going to be the president. Don't fuck around.
This was the underground plan to beat Hillary Clinton.
Right.
But so less than 1 year later, a self-admitted, Obama says he's not a Luddite, but he needs his daughters to help him set up his phone. I just find it totally implausible that in 2007 he would have any idea what Twitter is. Now remember, the current CEO of Twitter, Elon Musk, who I think everybody would agree, he's got his finger on the pulse of new technology and venture capital stuff. He was in Silicon Valley at that time. He didn't join until June 2009. How did Obama know about new technology before Elon Musk?
And what is he wearing there?
That's his Baphomet costume.
Okay.
But even the reprehensible Bill Gates, also joining in June 2009. I wonder what was happening in June 2009.
I joined in 2009. I forget what month, though.
So there might have been a big push going on, but the point is, how did Barack Obama, how did an anonymous staffer know about Twitter 2 years before these guys, right when Jack knew about it? It's funny, because Adam Sharp, he was a Senate staffer in that time frame. A staffer. Maybe he's friends with Mark Andreessen. I don't know. Adam Sharp, he's a big fan of these press releases. You see, when the Emmys, they sued Crowdsource the Truth, there was a big press release in the Hollywood Reporter. See, somebody loves press releases. You know, he's a journalism guy. These press releases, we got to wait 11 seconds for the Hollywood Reporter to make its money. Now, I got to be careful because technically, if I show the image that I got sued for, even though they've published it here in the public domain, arguably, U.S. District Court Judge Valerie Caproni could say,
But don't show it.
I'm not going to show it. But they could say that I'm in contempt of court. And if I were to show something that's publicly available on the internet, a process would be available to Judge Caproni to put me in jail.
That doesn't sound good.
So I'm not going to show that. But the point of the matter is, Adam Sharp loves press releases. You know, he went to Northwestern University Journalism School and graduated the same exact year as this journalist, Eric Gardner, who wrote this press release. I don't know if they know each other. It certainly seems like a remarkable coincidence that this story, which basically is just a reprint of the lawsuit that is replete with statements that I allege are completely false. But anyway, this is what the article is about, Charles. And it's interesting because, like I said, I wasn't looking into the activities of any of these people until Adam Sharp made the incredibly poor decision to mess with me and try to destroy Crowdsource the Truth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use facts, evidence, and the legal process to hopefully get that asshole brought up on treason charges.
More than just one.
Hi, Adam. And with that, Charles,
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I hope that people will become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. People can also sponsor the show on Odyssey now, and it's a great way to sponsor the show. I'm not sure why, but the stupid Mario brothers hate Odyssey, and that makes me really like it. People can get on there and just search for Crowdsource the Truth. If you'd like to become a member, tap on this membership tab, and then you can access the sponsor-exclusive content. Charles, I wouldn't have been able to do this research without the viewer sponsors that make Crowdsource the Truth possible. So,
and I think we also ought to close and thank Bob Bishop, who's done fantastic work.
Bob has
It's a real treat to get him on the show. He's very busy. And he very graciously, on short notice, agreed to come in and spend over an hour with us. And so I hope people will also follow him.
Yeah, people can get to Bob on YouTube searching for Bob Bishop, and I will have links in there in the description of this video. I definitely want to thank all the viewer sponsors that are making the show possible and remind people that this is not just messing around here. The country is in serious trouble, and talking about it is one thing. And you know, I don't remember if you were with me when this occurred, Charles, but one of the days that I went to Mac's Pub in Staten Island, which I now believe was also an orchestrated event. I don't think that Danny Presti or any of those people there were authentic. I believe that was a staged event, and the purpose of it was to demonstrate what happens to restaurant owners who defy the law and sort of pre-butt, as you would say, anybody having the good idea of opening. Because imagine if 100 restaurants got together and decided to do that at once. They really wouldn't be able to stop that. But if they can make a point of one guy, everybody's like, you know what? I don't want to get 5 felonies. Anyway, the point of the matter is, when we were there, or when I was there, I was saying something to these New York sheriffs who were, closing the thing down. You guys are violating the Constitution or whatever. And some Staten Islander said to me, hey, you're not supposed to talk to them. Just do your job. You're a reporter. And I said to the guy, you have no idea what the hell I'm doing here, and don't tell me what to do. So I am not a reporter in the traditional sense, because just like with 3D, I looked at the field of journalism in about 2015, and I decided that it wasn't working. So whether it's Columbia School of Journalism or Cy Hirsch or whoever the greatest journalist in history is, I'm not doing it that way. Maybe I'm an investigative activist. Maybe I'm a pro se evangelist. I don't know. But this is what I'm doing. These people have to be brought to justice.
Agreed. Let's hope that happens.
And Charles, thank you for participating. Thanks everybody for watching. Enjoy Hanukkah. Christmas is coming soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night. I should have a very big surprise for people tomorrow, but the guest has been a little bit on again, off again, so I don't want to say until it happens. If it does,